We are still in Chapter 1 in our statistics class. We're now in Section 2. I'm on page 7, and I'm about middle way down on the page, and it's starting to say since continuous. So you've just watched a video about discrete and continuous variables, and if you haven't already started some note cards, you might want to go ahead and start some index cards and keep writing information on there that pertains backwards to what you're talking about, and even getting cards ready for what's coming up. So here is talking about continuous data, and it's going to tell a little bit more about this data. So you notice I have underlined in black and red and even come back with some highlighter. Use this book. Make it your own. If you're using the ebook, use the highlighting features a bunch. You'll see I've got a lot of sticky notes on the side. I really like underlining, highlighting, and emphasizing information. I like to put sticky notes on there sideways where I can go back and talk even more to myself about something that's important on the page. Right now, you may not be sure what is important and what is not important, but what you see on my book, because you get a glimpse into my world, you get to see what is probably pretty important, but do keep reading the information in between my underlines. So the continuous data must be measured and must be rounded. So throughout our semester, we will talk about rounding, and it will vary based on the topic that we are discussing. Right now, we're talking about continuous data, and so it must be rounded because of the limits of the measuring device. I highlighted this because usually the answers are rounded to the nearest given unit, and then it gives some examples, like for example, a height. And then it's going to go through a thing right here called a boundary. So it mentions a number of 73 inches, and then it says, oh, and we're going to call that it has, or say that it has a boundary of this thing. Well, you might want to make an index card because you're going to need to know how to write boundaries. The boundary of a number then is defined as a class. I would highlight, underline, do something with that word, in which a data value would be placed, notice this word right here, before the data value was rounded. Boundaries are written for convenience, and then this, I should have this thing highlighted in like red or orange, as 72.5 or 0.5 to 73.5, but are understood to mean, I'm going to go ahead and highlight it, all the values up to, but not including 73.5. And so I've got some paper. I'd like to write a couple of things down. And so if we are looking at 73, and so 73, and I've got to get my brain wrapped around what is going on, and we're talking about 73. And so what are going to be some boundaries around it so that everything that would round to 73 is in that boundary, whether it would round up to 73 or it would not be 5 or higher, and you wouldn't round down, you just make it a 0 at that point and leave it alone. And so I'm going to go ahead and draw hash marks there, and I'm also going to go ahead and mention, I don't see it yet, but I'm going to mention, oh, I wrote myself a note down on the corner, one more decimal place. So this is like 73, so let's go to one more decimal place at 73.5 and 72.5. And let's see if that works out for us to go one more decimal place. So let's play around. If my number was 72.5, it would round to 73. If I play with a number in here like 72.97342, that would round to 73. So that number would work out. Well, what about the number 73.1? That would also round to 73. And also like 73.4 would round to 73, but as soon as I get to 73 5/10, it kicks me into another bracket, another category, another class, another boundary. And so the boundary for our number 73 is going to be one more decimal place, and it'll be 72 5/10 to 73 5/10, but let me read this thing again. It means all the values up to 73.5, but not including it, because once we get there, it kicks us over to the next class or boundary, which surrounds 74. Remember, you can always stop this video, go back, replay, listen, take different notes, run a search on the internet for boundaries or whatever you want to do. But remember, you need to be making some really good saturated time to think through all of these ideas. And a reminder, on the test, there will be some vocabulary parts, but there will also be some calculating parts, like can you calculate the boundary for? So let us go on down to table 1-1. And I want to play with some of these. And don't look at this. So right here you see that there is a 15 centimeter. So 15 centimeter. And my brain is thinking, okay, 14, 15, 16. But if I'm going to calculate the boundary, I need to go one more decimal place. Well, wow, this looks familiar. So let me go to 15.5 and 14.5, and voila, we're going to be there at 14.5, and you can't read that or see that, 14.5 to 15.5. Now I'll uncover my finger, and the only thing I don't have there are units. I am a stickler for units when I'm grading your tests, so make sure that you label well, not just a number, but a number with its unit. So that looked like the one that we did up here. So let's do another. Let's do this one. We'll go ahead and cover that up. Don't look. And on this one, I'm going to go ahead and switch over to a marker, and hopefully it doesn't go through. So here we are at 0.43. Like, what the heck? 0.43. I don't even know what to start writing on either side of it. And I need to go one more decimal place. This is already at the hundredths. I'm going to need to go to the thousandths. And sometimes it's just much nicer if you go ahead and add a 0 and picture it as like 430. So if I'm dealing with just 430, I think I can see the boundary. Let me try 0.435 and 0.425. And let's see if that's going to get me rounded to 0.43. So I'll play around with some numbers. Let me see if this is bleeding through. Yeah, no. So let me play around with some numbers. And when I play around with some numbers like let's just start with 0.425. The 5 is going to make that 2 round up to a 3. Yay, made it. But if I go on over here, that's going to make it round up to a 0.44, which is perfect because we're going to be from here all the way up to here, but not including it. And let's play around with another one, like 0.4397. How about that? 0.4397. Does that fit inside of where we are? So if you're not sure, this is a 0.4350, so nope, it doesn't fit. How about we put 0.4350, 0.4347, and what does that 4 do to the 3? Well, nothing. It leaves it alone and puts us back where we are. If I was keeping the one I had just a while ago, 0.4397, which again, you can't see, I'm running too low, then that 9 would cause that 3 to go up to a 4, and that actually belongs over here and would kick us up to the 0.44. So to answer this question, what is the boundary going to be? It's going to be from 0.425 up to 0.435, and we'll look under here. And again, the only thing I'm missing from what they have, I don't have the units, and this is seconds, and so it works. You really need to look at the two that I didn't do. I didn't look at temperature, and I didn't look at mass. Those would be really two good ones to look at before you move on to the example, but I am going to move on to the example. So looking at the example, it says find the boundaries of each measurement. Well, this 23 is going to be like the 15, so we've already done one of those. This, I didn't do one of those. So 154.62, that's in the hundredths like this one. So the only one I haven't given you an example of is the 17.6 to the tenths. And so why don't we go ahead and work on that one. So the 17.6, 17.6. And again, I can look at it like this, 17.7, 17.5, but I got to go another decimal place. So the other decimal place, I really like to put the 0 in there because it helps my brain, because now I can think money on this one, $17.60. oh, then it would be $17.55 and $17.65. And so this is the start of our class, and this may be all of a sudden the first thing that you're thinking, wow, this is not really making sense in my mind, and this is going to be a great thing to email me about. It's going to be a great thing to go to our tutoring, whether online or face-to-face. And right now, if you're watching this during COVID, the COVID-19 pandemic, then on the line is going to be your choice. So the boundary for this one is going to be 17 and 55/100 up to 17 and 65/100. Let's add in our unit, and it's going to be inches. Now, I have covered up the answers, but if we lift this up, notice that we're matching on what the answers are. I would stop the video, and I would do B and C. I would stop the video, and I would do the two that I didn't do here, temperature and mass. I want to go on just a little bit more, and I want to mention that you're about to look at some videos. And you're about to look at some videos that are going to be titled Levels of Measurement. And so you might have seen me, the cool thing is you get to see all the stuff written in the sides of my book, margins. And so right here, it's like, what do you see? What's going on? What makes sense to you? You've really got to wrap your brain around and make things that you're already familiar with connect with what we're doing, or create something that you're like, oh, the way it was said here doesn't make sense, but this does, and then test your theory that it makes sense every time. Well, along those same lines, on this levels of measurement, on the levels of measurement, you're going to have 4 levels of measurement. And you're going to watch a video from the book, from the author. And so you've got nominal, ordinal, you've got interval, and ratio. I would definitely pull out 4 index cards and start working on this, labeling them. The next video is going to take you through these. But I wanted to show you, on the top of page 9, there are more examples here. And in the middle of page 9, there are more examples here. So on your index card, you might end up drawing a picture of a card or whatever makes sense to you out of what you're reading. That's what you write down, and then that's what you memorize, that's what you learn. Notice I've highlighted some different things. I've given myself some different notes, and that helps my brain to remember the levels of measurement: nominal, ordinal, interval, and ratio. So just an encouragement there as you're about to watch this next video. Really get out something, either paper or an electronic document or some index cards, so that you can really start to understand and write down and clarify what this next video is going to be talking about.